Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Dick Buttons interviews, Adam Swart.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome to the world according to Dick Buttons, Adam Swart, who is the founder and CEO of Crowds on Demand. Now, I watched all the interviews that Kristen sent me, and I care less about, they always asked you who you did it for, and I want to know how it works.
Sure.
That's what interests me the most. I want to know if someone they reach out to you and say what? I mean, I understand paid protesting. I get the concept, but I want you to walk me through how that's all put together without giving out the secret sauce.
Yeah. Well, that is a very interesting question. Well, let me tell you, people come to me in one of two ways, or maybe in the middle. One way is, here's what we're doing. Here's what we want to do. How much is it to provide X number of people, right? They already have it all planned. They know what they want. They're just looking at us for the manpower. Now, I don't love that so much, but we do a lot of that. The second one is, this is the ultimate goal that we have. Let's just say we're opposing this ballot measure. We're opposing this bill. We're opposing this development. We're pushing this policy, right? Maybe there's a business dispute, whatever. Tell us how we can get it done and give us your recommendations within a sort of parameters of a budget. And you tell us how to get it done. So normally the conversation starts in one of those two places, or in some cases, somewhere in between. So we determine what it is that the client wants. And then obviously we have to figure out a ton of things, right? Number one, we have to figure out, well, does their budget match their ambition, right?
Right.
So that's an easy one. If you have a $50,000 budget and you are looking to push a bill through Congress, that's probably not going to be enough, right? But if you have a $50,000 budget and you're really concerned about a pressing local issue, that might well be enough, right? Or some cases, maybe more than enough, right? Depending on the issue. So first of all, you got to figure out the budget. Second of all, obviously, you got to figure out the legality, right? Sometimes people ask us to do stuff that, now, a lot of times people don't even understand. Like, okay, we are a legal, lawful advocacy firm. So if someone wants to block off a street, a lot of people don't realize you can't do that without a permit. Or you want to have megaphones somewhere. Well, you can't do that for the most part without a permit. So sometimes you have to sort of set expectations with what is doable within the confines of the law.
Interviewers that were asking you all those, they really missed the point. I think they were trying to get you to say, "Oh, I sent people here," or "I was a part of this," and I think
those are stupid questions, and I'll tell you why. Because the reason why they're trying to ask that is because they're always trying to get at this. Like, I'm sure you've heard the term astroturf. Well, my take is the term astroturf refers to ideas and campaigns you disagree with. Right. So if I'm on the left, I want to say everything on the right, that's not genuine. There's no one actually genuine on the right. That's the Koch brothers. That's the Adelsons. That's Elon Musk. Right. Now, if I'm on the right, I want to say, oh, well, anything I don't like on the left. Oh, that's George Soros. That's Reid Hoffman. That's Laurene Powell Jobs. Right. Like, that's not genuine. When the reality is both sides are backed by billionaires and both sides have a lot of support, right? But billionaires are kind of involved. I mean, welcome to the United States of America. This is an oligarchy. I'm sorry. Like, I hate to break it to you and your listeners. There are billionaires on the right and there are billionaires on the left. And there are billionaires sort of in between. And they're and centimillionaires and businesses and all kinds of interests that are trying to effect change that, for their personal interests, their business interests, and their philosophical interests, right? So, okay, welcome to America, guys. So why that is a stupid question is it presumes that one side is 100% moneyed and the other side is 100% genuine, when the reality is both sides are using kind of a money. And here's the thing. You can't win without money. You can't win without support. Now, it's a little bit of a combination. Like, think of it as you're making a salad dressing or something. You know, you don't want too much cream and you don't want too much olive oil. You don't want too much vinegar, right? Like you have to have this sort of mix, right? Now, let's just look at a few examples where money doesn't buy elections. Michael Bloomberg, Meg Whitman, Tom Steyer in California, right? These guys, they all basically tried to buy themselves into a seat, and it didn't work, right? I mean, you could even put Kamala Harris in that, even though she's not a billionaire. She was like, had oodles of money and did just absolutely terribly, right? So the reality is money forces people to take a look at you. Why? Because you can buy enough ads, you can get yourself out in the media enough so that now people can listen to you. I'm sure you know, and I'm sure all your listeners know, a ton of amazing causes that have failed simply because they don't have any money, right? And but we also know a ton of causes that have failed despite having money because they weren't able to get that support. So I think people oftentimes overstate the effect of money on these type of on politics because they don't realize, like, people actually do have a head on their shoulders. Money will force you to take a look at it, but it will not get the thing passed.
Right. Now, when someone contacts you and they let you, well, I'm going to sidestep to another question. When someone calls you and asks you for help, do you have to, I guess it's a crazy thing to say, but do you have to philosophically be on board with what they're trying to accomplish, or is that immaterial to you?
Question. No, it's a good question. Well, it's not immaterial, and I don't need to be 100% on board. So I put it this way. I have to think that it's not horribly offensive. So I talked about money, I talked about legality, but there are certain things that could be legal, right? Like, in the United States, as it should be lawful to conduct a Nazi rally, right? Because we have this thing called the First Amendment that allows you to be horribly offensive. However, I would not associate with such an offensive, horrible thing, right? Because I find that cause to be horribly offensive, regardless of the money or the legality, right? So number one, so obviously that's an extreme example. Like, okay, like I would imagine almost everybody would say no to that, right? But additionally, I would say there has to be some common sense element to it, right? So I'll give you an example. About 8 or 9 years ago, I started working with the cryptocurrency industry, and I've always been a skeptic of cryptocurrency. I didn't own any then, and I don't own any now, but I felt that they were being discriminated against by the government and by the big financial players. So I've worked with a lot of the big cryptocurrency companies over the years to advance their ideas, even when I'm not a crypto bro or whatever you want to call it. But I do believe that crypto deserves to be heard, and we help them be heard, right? So that's a good example of where I don't have to be 100%, but I do need to believe there's some merit.
Right. Now, another question I had when I was prepping for this. So someone called you. Do you have a stable of people that you go to? Like let's say you're in acting school and you needed a part for this. Do you know who you're going to go to when you sign on for a project?
Sometimes yes, and sometimes no. It's called central, like, Donald Trump, the president, always uses the word central casting. He always says that person. And what is central casting for the younger folks here? It's like where you would go to get me the guy to play the general, right? Like, that's what Trump means when he's like, this guy looks the part. That's what he means when he says central casting. Now, of course, some of the people he choose don't actually really look central casting, but whatever. That's what he means, as they look the part. But they also have to be the part. So and it's not simply casting, but let's just say I'm doing a pro-police rally, like anti-defund the police. Well, my central casting would be, here's a guy I know who's a store owner who's had break-ins. Here's someone I know who's been victim of a crime. And here's someone I know who, was a victim of the crime and the police were unable to investigate because of lack of resources. That's
Right.
central casting. That's me saying, here's who I know who's going to understand that issue and be a good advocate. But that's actually a smart thing. And that actually is, those are people who are going to be the most effective and genuine advocates for that cause. So in some cases, I have that person immediately in my head. So you say, hey, I want defund the police in Philadelphia. I know just the person. But maybe you ask for, I need someone who is an environmental activist in rural Mississippi. Well, maybe I don't have that person on the top of my head, but we have ways of identifying those people and sourcing and using those people.
Now, they're not employees of your company. You're just you're going out and finding these people, right?
Well, they're actually the definition of an independent contractor, and because they are free to, and they should, and they are encouraged to reject causes that don't comport with their ideas, right? I just had a conversation. For the most part, I have my people do it, but I actually just had a conversation with somebody about a job, and I talked to him for about an hour about it, and I said, to this person, like, I was explaining what it is that we need, and he was like, I'm just not on board with it. And I was talking to him, and I talked to him for a while, and he said, oh, I can do it if you want me to, because I've worked for you for a while, and if you really need me. And I said, no, if you aren't behind it, then you don't have to do it. You know what I mean? Don't do it out of loyalty to me.
Right.
I want you to do it because this is something you believe in. And he appreciated that. So I always encourage people to reject participating in events that don't comport with them. And while I don't normally I'm not normally the one that does those interviews, my staff is also encouraged to vet people for that. And number one, to vet people for that. And number two, to vet people in case that they don't share our values. Like, I want everybody to share the value of peaceful, respectful, boisterous, enthusiastic expression. So I want people to be loud. I want people to be proud, but I want people to do it within the confines of the law. Like, we are so lucky to live in a place that guarantees us that First Amendment expression. There's no excuse for law breaking in my books.
I agree with you 100%. Now, what percentage of the people do you think are doing it just to do it? Like, they get a jazz out of it. They want to be on the front lines, and the hell with the cause. And, they just want to be there.
Well, look, what we try to do is vet people for the cause, and also vet people for people. Like, of course, I actually like the idea of somebody who's an enthusiastic activist. So some of what we do is we take on niche issues. So maybe we're doing a rally outside an embassy in Washington about a human rights struggle halfway around the world. Well, maybe the people who are participating don't know a lot about that struggle, but they are human rights activists who are concerned broadly about those issues. So, so we sometimes educate them about that issue, and then I say, okay, knowing what you know now, do you want to participate?
Again, I go back to those other interviewers. They were just seemed to be jabbing at you, trying to get you to say something that fit their narrative, and I didn't think that was fair. And that's why I wanted to have you on, basically.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, the other interviews, as I said, there's one component is the partisan component. So much of our media is segmented, where what you're trying to do is, in that interview, you want me to say it's Soros,
right? Yeah.
Or you want me to say it's the Koch brothers, when the whole system is rigged by the other side. Secondarily, what they want to do is there's a little bit of sanctimoniousness, which is really funny. So, like, Joe Rogan has been one of our critics, I believe. And it's like, as interesting because he's like, oh, well, it's not genuine if people are getting paid. But it's like, dude, you're getting paid hundreds of millions of dollars. Literally, I think he's getting 9 figures. Yeah. Not 8 figures, not 7 figures, 9 figures for his work. And he wants us to believe that his views are genuine. But he is now saying that if someone's getting paid a couple $100s to go to a rally, that somehow that's not genuine. Like, it doesn't really make any sense, does it?
That's funny. You're right. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't. I think that's hilarious. Now, but I want to take it back a little bit. In your bio, it said the first paid protesting firm. So are there others now? I mean, have you broken the seal and And do you think that there are other less reputable firms out there doing what you do?
Well, I think the less reputable ones are the ones that aren't advertising. We are very clear with who we are, with what we do. And I'm, as you said, regularly out there in the media explaining our standards and how we operate, right? The other people might be, they're not advertising. They have their customers. They're probably getting paid cash or crypto and doing things that are either ethically or legally questionable. So yeah, I don't know who they are, but I see them when I see people passing out bricks or tactical gear on the streets of LA. Like, who are they? There's someone behind it. There's someone getting money for it. I don't know who it is.
Now, how did you get into this, Adam? That's another good question I had in my head. Like, you look like, can I ask how old you are? Because you look very young.
Yeah, I'm 35.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I started this business 15 years ago when I was in college.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's how long I've been doing it. Well, technically 14 years, but I say 15 because I can round up. So it's almost 15 years. So it's been, I wasn't of drinking age, I think, when I founded the company. So I guess I'll put it that way.
Okay.
So there I was 20 and a half or whatever. So at any rate, the point is, starting this company was, I worked a lot in politics in college. I really saw how activism was changing even in like the early 2010s or, whatever, that people who ran the campaigns at the time, now they're old, but I mean, they came of age in the 60s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where getting 5,000 students out on the quad was an easy quest, right? You just had, here's the justice issue of today. Let's get out on the quad and protest. And then we were kind of getting to an area where, no, this a lot harder. I mean, imagine seeing like Kamala Harris or Gavin Newsom with like 5 people seeing them. I kid you not. That's what it was like in my first year of college. Like, both of them were there. There's like, who is that? Like, no one cares, like, and half the people seeing them were their staff. So it's like, okay, there's a need to actually get attendance. And I really saw that firsthand and said, like, look, what if we, number one, got attendance? Because you can change the whole context. As I always say, like, imagine if Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech had like 10 people there. Wouldn't have had the same resonance, and so it's not that his lines weren't beautiful. So I guess the misinterpretation is a large crowd can't make a shitty speech seem good, but a small crowd can make a good speech seem lackluster. I guess that's my point. So what I learned in college, and then I worked a stint as a reporter for AOL, is context is everything. So if you show up with a good number of people, already people are going to listen to what you're having to say. Now, if what you're saying is shit, it's not going to matter. But people are listening. You have people's attention. So now use it, right? But if you never got those people, you are never going to get people's attention. And you could have an amazing message. I'm sure, again, like, we know a lot of great causes, but I also know a lot of great candidates that have just not gotten anywhere because no one's listening to them.
Right. And in the beginning, were people receptive to this when you approach? I would imagine in the beginning you approached these people that you saw they had a need. Were they receptive to it right away?
Well, I think that the real initial competition was on price. Like, they were receptive, but we had to keep the prices low, which wasn't a problem at the time, but posed 2 problems. Number one, we were mostly hiring actors in LA. So like I said, it was a gig economy before the gig economy. So there was the concern that it wasn't genuine. So like when I described earlier in the show how we are like really vetting these people, that was not something that we were doing when I started the company, right? So as a result, that kind of created some bad press, and that's fine, right? But we paid people $15 an hour when I started, which, keep in mind, this was the Great Recession at the time. Right. So $15 an hour is minimum wage, but at the time it was twice minimum wage. I mean, that's like, so people were really enthusiastic to work for that amount of money at that time. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to pay people twice what they would otherwise make to show up. And we did. But it lent itself to the charge that we were not genuine. So that's how I started, because people and my customers are still pushing me to keep the prices down. So one of the challenges that continues to pose is that what I want to do is I'm trying to develop this company into a really passionate advocacy firm, not like we're dirty tricksters and not like we're turning out a ton of bodies for cheap, right? So, but as a result, in some cases, I'll reduce we have to increase prices, and in some cases we'll reduce our profit margin. So what I would say is, like, I was trying to explain to people, I've actually taken a slight pay cut in order to actually implement my vision for the company.
So at a very young age, you start this company. When did you realize that this was going to take off and this was going to be your career for this long?
Well, I keep realizing it every few years. So I guess what I would say is, initially, when I started the company, I always say college is a great time to start because the consequences of failure are low, right? So at that time, I had a scholarship. I stayed a 5th year at UCLA. So I had I think it was a full scholarship by virtue of various activities that I was doing in college. So I was like, my costs are covered. So I was like, I used my savings, which probably at the time was like $5,000 or $10,000 to start a website and whatever, do the initial things to start the business. But basically, I was kind of like, look, if this succeeds, will be fun. If it fails, like whatever, I'm going to move on. And there was obviously a lot of more interest than I had suspected. And then what I've been trying to do is continue to say, how do I evolve this business with me? Because you're right. I've spent my entire adult career doing this, but my focus is to keep adapting and evolving with the business, because I feel like I'm getting smarter and I want to be more sophisticated. I want to be more mission driven every year with this, so that I'm like, and part of it is, look, I have to also be realistic with what opportunities are available to us. But one of the reasons I go on the media is to, in addition to rebut all the misnomers, is to express my intentionality of like, look, this is what I'm trying to do. I want this to be a passion-driven advocacy firm focused on really impactful, hard-hitting, nuanced type kind of publicity efforts, stuff that the big firms are too scared to take on.
And I think you're up against it too, because you're being honest, you're being forthright, you're vetting your people, but all people see is that you're paying people to protest, and they have that tunnel vision that so I think it makes it harder for you to do the things that you want to do.
Well, yeah, and that's why, like, I initially I as you said, a lot of the media, their narrative is so wrong. So I was reluctant to start doing more media for that reason. But part of it is like, look, I have to for that reason, because if I'm not out there, then I get why. And even like customers who know me and like loyal customers are like, even when I was thinking of this, they're like, I had something totally different in mind, but you actually are different than what my initial vision of you, and your company is different. So part of it is it's incumbent on me to be out there and speak about that. Otherwise, like any business, you're going to get pigeonholed in a certain way. And that other pigeonhole might be a more lucrative pigeonhole, but it's not. Like, the way that I look at it is, like, in 5 years, I'm going to be 40. What do I want to be doing at 40? I don't want to be known as a dirty trickster. Again,
right.
Now, that doesn't mean we're not going to be hard hitting. We are. That doesn't mean we're not going to speak truth to power and, do things that might make very powerful people upset. Big tech, big pharma, we've taken them all on in our campaigns. So I'm not trying to say we're going to be soft, but what I'm going to say is that what I want to be is maximum impact driven, not kind of known as, okay, this is the guy that'll get the bodies in the room.
Right.
When that's only one of the things that we do.
I wanted to get your opinion too. And I as a rule for my podcast, I really don't get political and I don't talk politics, but I think this is a good question for you. Where do What are your feelings on the current administration and the current state that our politics are in right now?
Well, look, I mean, I started this company in the Obama administration before he had even won the second term. So
Right.
I've definitely seen it in my adult and my professional life. Like, Trump has changed. I mean, whether you like him or dislike him, Trump has completely changed politics, and he's made it. I mean, I guess people have said politics have become more aggressive over the years, but I don't know whether I agree with that. I think Trump has made politics, but made both his side and the other side more angry, more divisive. Combined with Trump and social media, I think those things together
Yeah.
have been this sort of double-edged, like, thing that has made America so polarized, because you have Trump, who is amazing, who's great at getting his own people really enthused, but also great at riling up his adversaries. And social media has that same effect. They send you on a rabbit hole. They'll send you on anything from a right-wing rabbit hole, a manosphere rabbit hole, a left-wing rabbit hole, a misogynist rabbit hole, a feminist rabbit hole, a body dysmorphia rabbit hole, any kind of thing. If you start expressing a little bit of interest in it, they will send you down that hole. You know what I mean? And I know people from right, I know people left, I know people apolitical who've all gone down that rabbit hole. And it's really been like this nasty cocktail that has sent our country so divided. And that's I think that in terms of policy, that's a separate matter. But in terms of the divisiveness of this administration, it's really like that he is. And I don't just blame him for this, because I think the reaction to him has also kind of fed into it. So I think that's really the biggest thing I've seen since Trump got into politics.
Yeah, and I agree too, because I could just see it in my work, where I work with my coworkers, my family, my friends. Since he's been in office, there's just topics we can't talk about anymore, because everyone has their own thoughts, and it gets very, like you said,
can't not talk about. That's the other thing, is that I know so many people who pre-Trump were maybe right-leaning and non-political, left-leaning, non-political, or just simply non-political. And the number of people I know in my life who are not political is very small right now. There's very few people I know who are truly not political. And that is a direct result of Trump. And I think that is an unfortunate thing. And again, I don't have Trump attachment syndrome or Trump derangement syndrome. I'm just very realistic person who's monitored the coverage and monitored him. But I think that he has truly changed the way that we talk about politics, and social media has exacerbated that. And I think what I'm hoping is that we have a national reckoning on how we've become so divided, and we kind of figure out a way to get us reacclimated. Because look, I know this is trite because every politician says this, but it is true, is that if you actually talk to people, your neighbors, right, whatever, they're just going about their lives. Like, I have a lot of friends on all sides, so that they may be political, but they're just normal people. So how is it that when it comes to the internet world, somehow we've gotten like nasty? And the internet and social media has also given people this like screen to say nasty things that they would never say in person.
Right. Yeah. I mean, look, I love the internet. I love social media, but you're 100% correct. It is.
I don't like either of those. I don't like internet and I don't like social media. Like, now, unfortunately, we can't ban it because of free speech, but I would love to. But frankly, Mark Zuckerberg and all of the other, I mean, what's sort of interesting? So, fun fact about social media: what do Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook, Meta, Instagram, Bill Gates, and Microsoft that owns LinkedIn, Reid Hoffman, right? And Elon Musk, the owner of Twitter, all have in common.
What?
They were all associates of Jeffrey Epstein. So all the biggest owners and proprietors of all the social media were all affiliates with Jeffrey Epstein. You know what I mean? But really, what's interesting is I find that interesting because what Jeffrey Epstein did was groom people, and what social media does is they groom people. So social media has probably been the worst thing to happen to this country in my lifetime. I think the internet is probably a net positive, but social media, no one's ever made an argument that it's done really anything consequential positively. Whereas, Facebook allowed a genocide to occur, fomented on its platform in Myanmar against Rohingya Muslims. It's turned people against each other. It's created teen suicide, cyberbullying. Right. Like, the social media is a rot right now. It is a cancer on this country, and it needs reform. And we need we need something new. We need something new. And it's not so look, and it has to be done within the principles of the First Amendment, of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Now here's a good segue though. All right, finish your butt. Good.
But yeah, sorry, that was a long rant, but you did ask me. But like the social media companies they really send you on, they know you're deep, they know the darkest things that you're into more than your family and more than you. Mm-hmm. How do I know that? Is because I have a Twitter account, right? And I don't use it very much, but when I look, and if I just spend another 20 seconds on something that's hateful, it will show me nothing but hate.
Yep.
And I think all those platforms work the same way because they see me that I spend a little time on something hateful. They're like, maybe let's put them down that rabbit hole. You know what I mean? No. So it is a horrible thing, and it needs reform.
Well, this is a good segue then. I wanted to get your thoughts on AI too, because that's out of the bag.
Yeah, and that's something that goes right into social media as well, because social media uses AI. Those companies use AI to essentially engineer the algorithms that effectuate all of this, right? Because there's not somebody in an office in Menlo Park, California saying, oh, well, this guy seems to like this thing, so let's show him more of that. This is all being done through an algorithm that is AI propped up that does this stuff, right? And, I think it's a complicated thing for our country because I think if we could ban AI, I would say we should, but unfortunately we can't. It's kind of like nuclear weapons. Like, it would be beautiful if we lived in a world without nuclear weapons, but we can't. And if our adversaries had it and we didn't, that would be worse for us, right? So I think the same goes for the AI, is that we probably do need to have it to some degree, but we need to be cognizant of it. And of course, the problem with social media and AI is we have people who are in their 80s, completely out of touch in Congress, who are responsible for regulating the cutting edge of technology.
Yeah.
So I'm like, how on earth, are they supposed to either understand? And of course, that's excluding the fact that all these companies have essentially bought off Congress, right? So, I mean, so that's the thing. But by the way, if I could make another plug for protesting, okay. The AI companies, the social media companies, tech companies, they've bought off Congress, right? When they have hearings with Mark Zuckerberg there, that's just a spectacle for the cameras, but they never do anything against what Mark Zuckerberg wants, right? It's the hearings are just for them to look tough, but they don't actually ever do anything, right? So that's actually like a theater act, what you're seeing when you see them yelling at Zuckerberg or at any of those guys, right? So let's first stipulate that, right? But then, so they can buy off Congress, they own all of Congress, right? All of them, right? Then from the legal system, because they run Congress, they also have written the laws to make it very hard to sue them in the legal context, right? I mean, there were certain rulings that were favorable, but again, that even when you get a ruling that's favorable, then now Facebook can tie you up, and Google, YouTube can tie you up in court for, tens of however many years, and probably buy you off with a low ball settlement offer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to win in the legal system. They're going to win in the government system. One way that they cannot win is no one can do anything about me putting protesters outside Mark Zuckerberg's estate. You can't do anything about it. I can put protesters outside Meta headquarters. I can put protesters outside every single member of the board of those companies if I want, right? They can't do anything about it, right? Why? And I should be able to do that, right? Because that's our First Amendment right. So
Correct.
The protest has this capacity to transcend all of the ways that our system might be rigged in favor of the powerful, right? So yes, our services aren't cheap, but we actually give the opportunity to maybe less powerful people to protest the more powerful.
Now, this is a holistic question, I think. Do you feel you're making change? I mean, you have to believe in what you do, but do you think you've made a difference in the years you've been doing this?
Well, I mean, I can only talk about certain things that we've done, right? So, like, we were the ones behind the Delete Facebook effort, right? Which actually was so effective in holding Facebook accountable for misusing user data, the genocide in Myanmar, et cetera, that they actually changed their name to Meta shortly after. So literally, imagine getting $1 trillion company to change its name, right? And restrict political ads, right? So that's how I'm so familiar with that issue, right?
Right.
We won a major case pushing against insurers that were using a backdoor to deny coverage to the LGBT community, right? We won a multi-billion-dollar discrimination issue where a cable company was discriminating against a Black-owned media entrepreneur, right? So we've done a lot of really great causes over the years. The one way that I feel like I do somewhat regret is I feel like the existence of the paid protesting, because of the misnomers of it, has created even more skepticism among the people. And so I do feel like I have to balance the good things that we've done. So if I'm trying to be like realistic in my evaluation of myself over my 15-year career doing this, like, have I made a good impact in the world? Okay, let's look at those campaigns, right? And more, right? Or have I made a negative impact in the world? Well, look at how people use the idea of paid protesting to delegitimize the idea of activism, right? Which we've gone into earlier, which doesn't make any sense, but nonetheless, It is what it is. So I don't like that. So it's not to say that that was my goal, is to do that, but hey, I have to be realistic in terms of evaluating. My goal is I would like to, in 10 years, have it be like, no question, I made a positive impact in the world. So I'm looking for ways to do that.
Yeah. How big is your organization? Is it very small? Is it you and a couple people, or is it large?
Well, I'll put it this way. We are nationwide. We work all across the country. We're kind of at any point, we're doing anywhere from dozens of campaigns to or less, right? But, we're not necessarily doing thousands of campaigns at a time, but normally kind of a couple dozen campaigns, maybe a dozen, depending. My goal is to actually move to do like only 2 to 3 campaigns and just do that, right? Yeah. But the economic reality is that we can't do that at this point because we don't have enough ultra large customers, but that's my goal.
Right. I mean, this administration must have been a boom for your company, though. I mean, there's a lot of people who would like to protest against that and other things.
Interestingly, yeah, that's true. But it's the previous administration was also good. A lot of conservatives actually used our services in the previous administration to push back against, and for 2 reasons. Because number one, they were so scared of the cancel culture mobs that they wanted to do all their activism through us, because they're like, if I make a political donation or whatever, they're going to cancel me. They're going to come for my board seat, et cetera, et cetera. So easier to just fund campaigns through crowds on demand and then kind of stay out of it. So it's actually a way to protect from the cancel culture mob. And we're doing the same thing for this side, but we actually worked with a lot of conservatives. We were very proud. Like, I'm so opposed to cancel culture from the left and from the right.
Oh, but yeah, right. I'm with
But
you.
Trump is not really. Trump has said he's going to be the most free speech president, but he has not lived up to that.
No.
But Biden was very anti-free speech. I mean, what he did with the parents who oppose critical race theory, having the DOJ investigate them, having the banks deny, like, debanking a bunch of conservative groups. I mean, Biden was a very, very anti-free speech president. And I think it's very important to realize that. But I think that the difference is Trump is very upfront with what he's doing, and Biden was more secret about what he's doing. But I think both of them have not done very well for free speech.
Yeah, I think Biden was an old school politician. I mean, yeah, he was old, yes, but I mean, he
Well,
came from a
Obama
different.
wasn't anti-free speech, but I think that I feel that Barack Obama was very much not anti-free speech. I think he did not. The worst that they had on Obama on free speech was Lois Lerner. Remember the thing with they said that there was but she was a rogue IRS agent that allegedly was doing audits on conservative groups more than liberal groups or something. But that's like the worst they had on Obama, right? But Obama really didn't do anything to weaponize the government. Against free speech. I don't know. Maybe there are instances where he did, but if you look at Biden and if you look at Trump, there's just a lot of ways that they've been kind of more stifling free speech.
So if there's a movie made about you down the line, like a Facebook movie, who do you want to play your lead?
Oh, well, I like if only he was a little bit younger, I would say I've always liked Paul Rudd to play me. I mean, that's very flattering for me. But I would say, yeah, that's a good question. Who would play me in the movie?
Has that thought crossed your mind though at all? Because you've been at this so long. At the end game, you said 10 years from now you want to make a difference. Do you think, or have you thought about that? You would like to see.
Well, the movie that'll be made is really going to depend on what my net I don't think I've made enough of a contribution for them to make a movie about me yet. I think they need to wait, but there could be an interesting one. I mean, I've certainly dealt with some very interesting people over the years. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, maybe Paul Rudd, maybe, I'm sure my detractors could think of a lot of less flattering actors to play me. So I don't know. But yeah, I think that what I want people to understand is that I'm trying to do the right thing, and I'm like very much mission driven, and I love that. I want people to understand that I'm a marketer at heart. I'm a publicist at heart. What I like to do is think of innovative, creative, punchy ways to get publicity for companies, for causes, for candidates, but I love to do like innovative things where I'm kind of speaking truth to power, making and using the tools of the First Amendment to take on the big tech from the startups, take on established interests from less established. So, that's what I want people to kind of understand about my goals in all of this.
No, I'm glad you're getting that out here, because the other places the interviews that I watched, they weren't interested in you saying that, or like you said before, they had their mission to get you to say what they wanted you to say. So, but that's the news. That's what their game is. So
the longer you have to talk, the better. You know what I mean? Like I think the longer you have to talk, the better.
Those were like what 10-minute segments, but yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And there are a lot of in fairness, there are a lot of fair people on cable news, so I don't want to put them all into a box. But I think that if you're coming in, like, it's so funny. I love the Sarah Palin gotcha journalism. That's what she coined the term, gotcha journalism. And look, the really funny thing about the interview, the infamous 2008 Sarah Palin, Katie Couric interview was that actually that wasn't a gotcha journalism. Those were actually like very basic questions. I think she was asked like, what publications do you read? Like that doesn't actually sound like a gotcha question. But I think that Sarah Palin was a little ahead of the curve in saying that was a gotcha question, which it wasn't. But the reality is these days, there's a lot of gotcha journalism because the journalists are really what they're looking for. And this goes into social media and all of that is they want that clip, that 10-second, that 15-second, that 30-second that's going to go viral. So whatever that is, they want you to say the thing that's going to go viral, or they want the video of them, having at you, whatever the case is, so that they get those clicks, because that is how the journalism works these days.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about clicks, all about views. Now I'm going to ask you I know you're a free speech guy. Where do you stand? And I already know the answer, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Where do you stand on Trump getting all upset at all the talk show hosts, wanting them fired, wanting their FCC licenses to be taken away? Well, I mean, how insane is that?
Well, first of all, upset is fine. Like, so we're talking here on Tuesday, right? The 9th, right, of June. Like, obviously, like, you might not like the Kristen Walker, well, the Meet the Press interview where Trump storms off, but I don't really care. He can storm off. I don't care. That's his right. So I don't think he has, I don't think he owes Meet the Press anything. He doesn't have to talk to him if he doesn't want to, and he can storm off if he wants to, right?
Yeah,
so I don't criticize him for that.
He gave them the clickbait, though. I mean, right?
He actually probably made it a better. I mean, yeah, but that he made it better for them and better for himself, because for his supporters, the thing is, it actually worked for both sides, right? Because his supporters, like, yeah, he's sticking it to the liberal media, and for the liberal media, then they're getting a ton of clicks. Like, wow, what a buffoon, right? Okay, great. Well, first of all, I don't care if he does that, because that has nothing to do with the First Amendment. If he wants to say he doesn't like the coverage about him, that's fine. I understand that he doesn't like the coverage about him, but he cannot use his power as president to like crack down on the FCC licenses or whatever. I mean, that part is ridiculous. So if he wants to call them the fake news or whatever, I don't have a problem with that. If he doesn't like the coverage about him, I just spent half an hour talking about I don't like the coverage of my company some of the time. So that's fine. That's my right to not like the coverage. So I have no criticism of Trump for not liking the coverage of him, other than to say that some of the things that he does might create that coverage, right? But I don't care if he's storming out of an interview. I do care if he's using the power of the government to punish media organizations that he doesn't like.
I mean, I did see a dotted line, and this is just me, call me a conspiracist, but when Stephen Colbert's show got canceled, I thought that was an easy dotted line from that merger to see how that happened.
Unfortunate, because Stephen Colbert was such a shitty host and unfunny that, like, it's unfortunate that got linked, because he had a terrible show. It was an awful show. It was cringeworthy. He's not funny. He hasn't been funny since he hosted the Colbert Report on Comedy Central. So he's not a really unfunny person, but in my opinion, the fact that you link that with Trump now actually makes Colbert a martyr in a way that he should have just been canceled for low ratings and low profitability. But Trump injected himself into that, and now you're creating that dotted line. So I have no idea if he would have been renewed his contract or not. He
was number one in the time slot. He made out of all the talk shows. So I mean, unless I was
maybe he would have been renewed. Maybe he would have been renewed. Yeah, I mean, maybe he would have been renewed. I mean, I happen to know the person who replaced him, and like, I mean, it's interesting. Like it, So I don't want to. I
forgot his name. He's a journeyman comedian, right? I mean, I've seen him on many.
So the gentleman who's replacing him is a businessman and also a comedian. And he made a very interesting business offer to CBS, right? So I guess the way that I would put it is that I don't like the politicization of this. Colbert should either be canceled or not canceled based solely on economic factors, not based on whether the president was happy with him or not, and the Paramount, David Ellison, whatever business. So I don't like that. And I don't like the fact that this sort of idea that you have to have show hosts that support me. And if you don't, then I'm not going to approve your mergers.
Right. I mean, was I off base making that dotted line? I mean,
no, I don't think you're off base. I don't think you're off base. I think that I don't know. But I think I don't know if you're wrong, you're right, or you're wrong. But because Trump injected himself into it, we won't ever know until maybe we get. Well, I actually hope that will know definitively, because I'd love to see the documents. I'd love for someone to sue and then have the documents all released, and then we'll know for sure whether there's a dotted line or not.
Well, we know how documents go. I mean, you brought up Jeffrey Epstein. Those files, they said they were going to release them, and when they do, they're so redacted. There's really, I mean, I think everybody...
That's ridiculous. That those need to be all released in their entirety. I want to know everything. Anything that doesn't have confidential victim info in it should be released. I want to know all these guys. I think it's so messed up that there's these depraved emails saying like these horrible things. I was like, I don't know who sent it. You know what I mean? Like, release those emails. And by the way, everyone who is part of that needs to be immediately leave public life. I mean, I think I think all these people, like I said, all the social media CEOs were all associated with Epstein. I understand that doesn't mean that they're all that doesn't mean that they all did what he did.
Right.
But it means that, come on. You think Mark Zuckerberg or Elon is going to just meet with anybody? There's thousands of people every day who want to meet with those men, right? Because they're powerful and they're rich. Mm-hmm. So they declined those other meetings and they accepted the meeting with Epstein, knowing who he was, right? So why is that they accepted to meet with Epstein and they denied meeting with all the people they denied meeting?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the reason, to me, in my mind, the reason that we haven't seen them all is because there's people on both sides, every political, it doesn't matter. Hollywood, left, right, up, down. There's so many people on those lists that I don't think anybody wants them out. And I think that's why.
And I criticize Biden for not releasing it too, because there are plenty of Democrats on there, like Larry Summers and all that, right? Like there's Kathy Rumler, who was at the Goldman Sachs, right? Like, so the thing is that the reality is this is the powerful. I love the term Epstein class. You know what I mean? That is what it is. And the Epstein class, it's not Republicans or Democrats. In fact, it's both. It's something that really unites both parties, the elites.
Mm-hmm.
So,
all right, so you said you had a 10-year plan that you said you wanted to be able to say you made a difference. How many more years do you think you have left in you, though? So if you don't, let's say you don't get to that point in 10, do you have another 10 after that in you, or?
It really just depends. I mean, I couldn't possibly say what is the world is going to be like in 10 years. And I think as long as I have fulfilling customers and enjoy it, I'll be doing it, but I'm looking to really focus on a more impact role. So that's my focus, is on identifying fewer, larger, more impactful projects.
Now, how do you go about that, Adam? I mean, I like what you're saying there. And I think from a business perspective and a business plan, that makes total sense. But where's your starting point on that? Like, people are going to still contact you, right?
Well, of course. Well, the starting point is getting out there and making it clear of these are the type of campaigns I'm interested in. And if you are interested in funding something like this, right. This is something that I'm interested in. That's how I would put it, right? So my intentionality is take on social media, take on pharma, take on fast food. Make our cities better. Those are my 4 biggest priorities.
I mean, those are bold, but I think fast food feeds into the pharma thing. They want to keep everybody fat and sick.
Or skinny.
There's plenty skinny and sick.
or skinny and sick with the GLP-1s. But I mean, I have no problem with the GLP-1s necessarily, but they kind of have this, it's like this cycle. And I'm not a Maha person, so don't confuse what I'm saying with Maha. I'm not anti-Maha, but I don't want to associate myself with that. Is they get you on fast food, which is addictive, right? They make the fast food cause you to overeat, then you're fat, then you get the GLP-1s. You're making antidepressants to go along with that, right? So they're selling you antidepressants, they're selling you diabetes because you have diabetes from this, right? They're selling you all kinds of other heart, whatever it is that you need from that, right? Then you're getting the GLP-1s, and then you're getting fat again, and you're like it's actually an amazing cycle for them that are kind of going to keep you sort of constantly sick, right? So GLP-1s, if you look at it as a one-time intervention, is probably something that people should consider. But the reality is most people aren't doing that. They're using it as a replacement for a healthy lifestyle, right? So what people should be focused on is eating good, clean foods and getting physical activity, right? And if you're doing that, I'm not going to again, that doesn't mean you couldn't get brain cancer tomorrow. You could, right? But you're going to eliminate 80 to 90% of the problems that you could experience. That other 20% is there. And that's what you need pharma for. So I'm not anti-pharma, but I'm anti-creating the addictive ecosystem. Like, healthy living is do healthy living. And when healthy living doesn't work, then take a pharma, right? But don't take a pharma. It's like take out the trash and then spray air freshener. Like, what they're trying to do is they want you to have a lot of trash in your kitchen, and then they keep on selling you air freshener and scented candles to make your house smell better. But when you really need to just take out the trash.
Right.
And then if your house still smells bad, then spray the air freshener.
Yeah. Are you a proponent then? Because I have these discussions with my son from time to time. He feels that the only way change is going to meaningful change is going to happen, and he uses the word revolution. And I don't think anybody in the United States.
No, I oppose that. I oppose that.
Oh, I wanted to get your opinion, but I don't think anybody in the United States has the gumption or the fortitude to actually do that.
No, we're too fat and happy. But
Yeah,
here's so here's the challenge though. So for now, there's very, very limited risk, right? Very, very limited risk. But so the biggest challenge in that space, and I always oppose that because I oppose violence of any sort, and I oppose political violence, I oppose any kind of violence, right? But the biggest risk to revolution is from AI, is because with the AI, if it starts to replace tens of millions of jobs, that's when you're going to have people who are going to take to the street and fight back, some of them peacefully, but some of them not, against AI. So the AI people need to have a plan of how to satiate the rest of the people. Now, I've had really positive interactions and negative people. I mean, I'm from the Silicon Valley originally, so I know a lot of people in tech. I just had a 2-hour conversation actually with someone I was sitting next to on the plane who's like a genius in AI. And he has the really optimistic vision of people are going to be a lot happier because purpose won't revolve around work, right? So in the case of this happens, right? But the AI people create enough wealth that they can actually create prosperity for even the people who are left behind by the AI, right? So if that occurs, then how do they create purpose among people that isn't work? That's really the question. So there's two questions. Number one is, are they going to share the wealth enough to create so that those people who are displaced aren't starving to death on the street, right? And number two, are they going to be, so number one, I buy, right? There's the UBI or whatever, right? because they're going to create an extraordinary amount of wealth. So are they, with that wealth, going to be able to create that prosperity enough so that they can, so that people aren't dying on the street who lost their jobs from the AI, right? Okay, well, let's just say they are able to do that. Well, the second part is, are you going to be able to create purpose? Because idle people are actually probably the most likely, in historically speaking, to revolt, right? Like, it was the bourgeois in the Russian Revolution, it's a bourgeois in the Iranian Revolution of 79, it's a bourgeois in the French Revolution of 1789, right? It's a bourgeois in the American Revolution. So the most likely people to revolt are not people starving on the street. It's actually people who are idle and have a ton of time to think about these sorts of things, right? So if anything, if you actually pay people off, then they're actually probably those are probably the most likely to want to overthrow you. So what you need to do then is actually almost a cultural thing, is how do you create purpose? Because if you go to Europe, among to some degree, I remember I was on vacation in Italy, and the person staying in the house next to our house was German, very like seemingly quite successful, well-dressed German family. And, you know, I was chatting with them at the barbecue, and I asked them, I was like, oh, so what do you do for a living? And he was very taken aback by the question. And he looked like he was probably quite successful in whatever his field by how he was dressed in his car. But he was like, he asked as if, like, I asked him what his favorite sex position was. You know what I mean? Because it's like their purpose doesn't all revolve around what do you do? What do you do? Whereas in our culture, in this country, a lot of our purpose revolves around what do you do? What do you do? Whether, and obviously at the higher level, but even at the lower level. And it's fascinating, but in a way, our purpose so revolves around it that, like, if you are a janitor, or you're a, you know, garbage collector, or jobs that we might broadly in society say are unpleasant, you may think you'd prefer to not have to work.
Right.
But actually, you may prefer to work in your id. In your actual, if I actually said after a month or two of not working, you might lack that purpose, because American society and culture is so focused on work as the method of self-worth, rather than, hey, that's John, he loves to fish and bang his wife every day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, how great is that? Like, in theory, like, hi, I'm John, I was a garbage man, now I fish and make love to my wife every day. Like, in theory, that sounds a lot better, but is it better for John? You see what I'm saying? That's like almost that's a psychological and philosophical question.
And whether or not, if there, like you said, the great wealth can be generated, but will there be a vehicle to get it to the people? That's the other question too.
Well, so that's the first question, because if people are starving, then we're going to have, because of course America has no social safety net. So if you lose your job, you're losing your health care, you're losing your source of food and living. So first problem is, can they solve the issue of actually providing that to the people who they displace? Yeah. And the second question is, can they give purpose? Yeah. So I kind of buy that they can solve the first problem, because the amount of wealth that they're going to create is so enormous that they might be able to create enough wealth to do that. But is it also going to create enough where you're giving people a really pleasant existence? Like I said, is the, oh, my name is, Andy, and I'm what I used to have to do was, clean toilets, and now I'm free to, again, play golf or whatever. It's like, am I going to be able to do that? Or am I just going to essentially get enough to live a bare bones existence? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So those are unanswered questions that I think the AI titans should have to answer, because the fragility of American society depends on it. So to go back to what your son is saying of, is it going to, like, my feeling is I hope not, but Tucker Carlson, for example, makes some interesting points on that. And I think he's his point is that people need purpose, and work is purpose, right? So what AI people have to solve is, how do you give people that purpose?
Right. I mean, listen, AI is taken. I don't know if you saw, I think it was 2 weeks ago, Marvel laid off 3,000 computer generator people
Right.
because
So
of
it's also
AI.
white collar. Yeah, it's also white collar, not just blue collar. So um if anything, I think AI might come for white collar more than blue collar. Um
But no,
so
let's not be too hasty to say there are good aspects of AI as well. In the medical field,
I like that.
AI can see things that people can't see. It could analyze data better than people can.
Well,
We
I
have
mean, I
to.
use it all the time. I mean, so I'm not an anti-AI, just to be very clear,
Mhm.
but I think AI will create this fragility in our society. I think it's going to create a lot of amazing things too, right? Um, the question is that who is going to be able to benefit from those amazing things? So I love the idea. Like I mean, I use AI all the time. I mean, I've used it to meal plan. I've used it to, I'm walking around on a trip and I can use it to give me a history lesson on
Yeah.
old buildings. Like I use it, I actually do use it. I'm like, oh, what is this little mark? Like, is this like, and then it's like, oh no, that's from a nickel allergy, literally.
Mhm.
Like, so it's like AI is really smart, like, and I love it. So I'm not anti-AI. I do think it's probably a net negative, but but I think that we're stuck with it. So we have to manage it. But I think that if we don't want it to create a major fissure in society, we have to really solve that problem.
Yeah.
Or we are facing those problems.
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna give you one last question, Adam. How do you want to be remembered when this is all said and done?
I want to be remembered as someone, a creative publicist who's changed a lot, who's made a big difference in a lot of fields by advocating and convincing and persuading people in a way that no one else could do it, and taking on campaigns that are really innovative, that kind of make our country a better place.
Yeah, I think that is a bold agenda. But listen, I will say this, and I'm going to be totally
That's how
honest
I
with
want
you.
to be remembered. Yeah.
Well,
Anyway,
yeah,
go on.
yeah.
Yeah, go on.
I want to be totally honest. I didn't know what to expect coming in based on what the videos I watched and everything else, but I'm impressed. I mean, honestly, it's not what I expected, and that's a good thing. I'm being totally transparent here.
Well, I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed the conversation. I appreciate you giving me the forum to have the this really like in-depth chat.
Yeah, this is what I like to. It's more of a conversation to me than an interview, so that's the way I like to go about it. And I apologize for the way this started with the
Well,
mishap on
I'm
the
glad you
time.
were able to make it happen. I really enjoyed it.
But again, thanks for coming on. Thanks for spending the time with me. And I'll send you a link when the episode goes live. I'll do some editing. I'll throw up some links for you to get in contact with you. And it was great talking with you, man.
You got it. Yeah, thank you.
All right.